You had 4 rescues in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
Let's how do you say shit show in a nice way?
I mean, I listen. I've been in an ambulance, and like I've gotten called out multiple times a day. I get that, but to do literally like 4 rescues in 3 hours,
It was
wow.
just compounding on top of itself. Yeah, that one, yeah, that was an interesting day. Again, a weekend, again, of course, because I mean, why not?
Yep. Why not?
Um, um, let's give you some backstory to that one actually. So
Yeah.
during the whole COVID, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
weirdities, uh,
That's pretty
that
good. I like that one.
um, they did some strange things in South Africa where they closed public areas, parks, nature reserves, hiking trails, etc. Places where you were like, well, you're in the open and you're away from people. What's the difference? Anyway, as it be as it may, it was one of the strange things. And with the confinement and the restrictions in place, you got cabin feverish people, especially in South Africa, where you've got really good weather. People like being outdoors. Um, Now we're not allowed to be outdoors. Come this incident, where they had opened the reserves about 2 weeks earlier, and this happened to be a really good weekend of good weather, and everybody was like, we're going hiking, whether we've been
Yes.
hiking or not in the past. We're going hiking.
Everybody
So
had to get outside. Everybody had to get
everybody
moving.
was outside,
Yeah.
and
They cramped up for too long, and
yeah,
it's time to get outside. I get
time to get
that.
out
Oh
and
my
do
God,
some
I
stuff.
get that. Yeah.
And so what started out as a group of hikers, there was about 8 of them, gone on this hike down to the waterfall in Kloof Gorge, which is a nice hike, and it's a great scenic thing. It's a cliff, it's a ridgeline trail that then zigzags down the cliff face, um, about 130 meters in elevation, um, and then you follow the river back upstream. You do one crossing, and you come up underneath this really big waterfall, and there's a nice big pool there, and it's quite a nice spot for a picnic, and some people swim in the river. Cool, awesome spot. So these 8 decide that they're going to go there. They've got limited hiking knowledge, they limited fitness. They go to this spot, and in the midst of their picnic, one of them walks underneath the bottom of the waterfall. You can do it. There's like a bit of a ledge, but it's wet.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'd
but
totally
it's
be underneath a waterfall. I mean, I'm just
yeah,
saying.
but it's wet, slick rock. So you've
Yeah.
got to be careful. She slips, falls, and goes over the edge into the waterfall, into the pond.
Of course she
Friend,
does.
yeah. Friends managed to recover her from the water up to the side. She's injured her back, injured her neck, and one of the friends, the fitter of them, decides that he's going to run back because there's no cell phone signal down there. It's this really tight crevice. He's going to go back up till he finds cell phone signal and raise the alarm, because obviously we need to get it out. And along the way, there's these markers, trail markers. On the trail markers has our phone number, and it just says there, in an emergency, call this number and tell us which marker you're at. So him and then one other decides they're going to go with him just in case, because a little bit of panic. So they go up the trail. Gets to where the cell phone signal exists, gives us a call. We're like, okay, cool, no problem. He says, no, he'll meet us at the car park and guide us back in. Like, okay, well, we don't have to, we know the routes, but cool. Unbeknown to us, leaves the other person to go back by themselves. In the midst of this other person going back, they slip and fall and injure their ankle. which we only discover when we go into the primary case. They come across the second injured person. And it becomes okay, so the second injured person is a very quick extraction. Let's get them out quickly, and then we'll continue with the primary case. So they extract the first person. That's at the point where I got involved, because I wasn't there, or I was on my way there. I can't remember. I arrived at the car in the car park, because I live actually sort of the furthest away from that area than everybody else. I arrive in the car park. They're busy loading this patient in the ambulance. I'm like, oh, cool, you guys are done. They're like, no, second patient. I'm like, whoa, hang on, what? And I'm standing in the car park now, kitting up, when this hiker comes past and this goes, oh, by the way, there's somebody who slipped and fallen on the trail down there. We're like, yeah, no, cool. They're in the ambulance. So he's like, okay, awesome. We assumed here that same person, right? We're now working with the primary case. Second set of hikers come through and goes, oh, do you guys know about the person with the ankle injury down the trail? Then I'm like, there's a 45-minute delay here between these two hiking parties that have come past. This is not one and the same person.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, okay, get on the radio. I'm like, guys, I think we have a third case. They're like, no, impossible. I'm like, well, we've had the second hiking party come past and ask us if we're aware of an ankle injury on the yellow route. I know we took the one ankle injury off earlier, but it's impossible that this second crowd has not exited the reserve, in this time frame. It just doesn't make sense. They're like, okay, well, we need to try and investigate this. So we're like, we're really down on resources. Now, what are we going to do? So we're like, well, we're not sure if this case actually exists, but we need to kind of pull people off the primary case to go and do this. So we established that the guys at the primary case, they settled, they've got it all sorted out. We're like getting a helicopter in to extract this patient, because there's no ways we're going to climb out this gorge with this patient. And at that time, we're like, okay, well, we're going to send somebody to go and find the third case. So two guys go off to go and find the third case, while we establish the scenario for the helicopter to come in. Now, the helicopter at that time, it's an air ambulance. It was a Bell 407. Luckily, it was the 407. So it's a smaller machine, smaller rotor disc, and we believed we could get it into the bottom of the gully. The pilot came over the top, and he said, yeah, no, he believes he can get into the gully if they clear some trees. So we're like, oh, okay, let's get some chainsaws out. So
nice.
whip out some chainsaws, make a quick rappel line down the face of the waterfall, send some chainsaws down. We hear the screaming of chainsaws for about 20 odd minutes while they cut trees back and make an area for this helicopter to come in. Now, while this is happening, I've moved slightly down the path a bit so that I can get a better view down into the gully that way, and I can look down into the bottom. And you can see some of the hiking trail in the bottom and what have you. And I'm standing there, and another hiking party comes past, and they're like, there's some people shouting for help somewhere. We don't know where, but we could hear them on our way up. I'm like, well, now you got to be shitting me. I'm like, please tell me this is case number 3 with the ankle injury still, which our guys have now found. And they are established that they just need to brace the ankle and help this person walk out. No big deal. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, yeah, sure, we're onto it. Don't worry about it. No problem. They're like, okay, awesome, as long as you know. And they leave. And I don't know, 10 minutes goes by, and another party come out. They're like, oh, there's some people shouting for help. We're like, all right. I was like, okay, when did you hear this? They're like, no, about 5-10 minutes ago. I'm like, okay, which trail did you come up? So like, no, we came up from the green route, and when we joined the yellow, and I was like, oh shit, the green route's the one that goes into the bottom. I'm like, okay. So like, all right, let me walk along a little bit further. So I walk along to this sort of jutting rock that sort of juts out and hangs over the edge, and you can look down into the bottom. And I'm standing on this rock and looking up the valley, looking down the valley. And as the wind sort of dies, I hear this shout for help. And I'm like, no, it's not happening. So I get on the radio and I'm like, guys, there's some people shouting for help. I can hear them. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yes. Like, on top of the fact that 2 other people have come past and told me the same story, we have a 4th case. They're like, no, we don't have resources for a 4th case. I'm like, I know this. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. Where do we start? So I'm like, okay, well, let me try and establish where the shouting is coming from. So you stand there. Out the corner of my eye, I catch a reflection down in the river. And it happened to be the person's spectacles catching the sunlight. And they were in the river. They'd gone off the trail and they'd gone down the river, and they were lost in this river. So I could see them from the top. And I was like, okay, guys, I found the subject. It's a lost person scenario. It doesn't look like they're injured. They're walking around, but they are not on the trail. I know that for a fact. They're like, okay, so what's the scenario? So it's like, well, the scenario is I need to take somebody. We need to go and find this person before they get proper lost, because we've got about an hour and a bit worth of daylight left. And if we don't get down there, we're going to have a proper case on our hands. They're like, well, we don't really have resources. You know, we need you guys at the top there. And it's like, I'm sure they can handle, like, if 2 of us leave here, I'm sure the remaining 3 guys can cope with what's going on up here, because all they're doing really is, sending you guys equipment and retrieving the equipment. There's nothing more complex than that. I'm sure they've got it under control. They're like, okay, cool. Well, get going then. Who are you taking? So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to take one of the girls, Ocean, that's her nickname. I'm going to take her because she's a trail runner. She's really fit. And this is going to be some arduous stuff. So myself and her are going to get going, and we're going to go and find this person. She's also new, so I was like, this is great for her from an experience point of view. So I get hold of her, and I'm like, right, listen, come with me, stand here. Can you see the subject? I'm like, that's where we got to go. We've got to get to them and get them out before the sun sets. And she looks at me and she's like, are you joking? I'm like, no, let's go. I'm like, so we go. In this interim, the heli pilot's done 2 more passes, and he's now going on his approach in. This guy's approach into the gorge is something out of a movie, man. It's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 meters clearance on each side of the rotor, coming into the bottom. Then he's got to pirouette that thing around and push the tail backwards towards the waterfall so that it's in the clear. They do a hot load. So, I mean, I'm assuming most people listening to this know what a hot load is. Don't shut the machine down. Its rotors are running, power on. But it's more than a hot load because he can't put his skids down. So it's a hovering hot load. One skid is on the bank of the river. The other skid is actually in the water. And they open the doors. Now, Bell 407 doors don't slide, they fold. So they don't work so great when the rotors are spinning, especially if you're not on the deck and you've got some pitch in there. Now there's some downdraft. Those doors then become, they're sails. They just want to catch the air and flick all over the place. So now there's one of our guys like waist deep in water, like holding the doors back while they load the patient into this machine. All the time, like we're climbing down the mountain, and all I can see is the top of the rotor disc through the trees. So it's like a red and white checked rotor disc, and it's just like this disc through the trees.
It's sick.
And we get out to the bottom eventually, and as we get out to the bottom, the machine takes off, and he like flies like directly over the top of us on his climb out. And we're like, okay, so that case is done. Now the guys down the bottom, they don't know about this 4th case because they went to a different radio channel. They've switched off paying attention to what else is going on. We eventually found these 2 subjects. There were 2 of them actually. One of them was walking around in the river lost. The second one was sitting on the rock, dehydrated. And I always carry a camelback with me. It's just like my gospel thing. And just don't go anywhere without water. Um,
Yeah.
so we give her a bit of water. We try and get her a little bit hydrated. Um, two elderly ladies, sort of mid to late 50s, so not very fit. They were out on a Sunday stroll. Didn't have the best equipment. Didn't have the best shoes. Um, had run out of nutrition and liquids hours ago. They were well off the trail, so now we had to get them back on the trail. So got them a bit hydrated, and then now we entering twilight, so we're running on a light, and we got to get this wrapped up. While we're busy getting these two ladies back to the trail, the group from the waterfall comes wandering down, and they're like, "Oh, what are you guys doing down there?" I'm like, "Well, this is case number 4." They're like, "Case number what?" I'm like, we're on the 4th case here right now. We need to get these two ladies out. They were like, "You guys, no, like, we're wrecked, man. We don't have the energy to take like any more people out of this place." We're like, "Well, we've got to get out." And I was like, "Here's the deal. Like, let's get out and go home before any more other people fall." Like, and, and thankfully these ladies were just dehydrated. So, but it still took us another hour and a bit. We got out well after sunset. Got them out, and we get them to the car park, and then they realized that, oh, the case number 1, the one that got heli extracted, has the car keys for their car. So they've
Oh
gone to
my
hospital with the
God.
car keys. I was just like, "I'm sorry, ladies, this is no longer my problem." Like, I'm done with helping people right now. I mean, like,
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
yeah, and I mean, it was like a comedy of events. It was just like one after the next. I remember when the guys
Wow.
when they were filling in the log sheet, they were like, "Well, what timestamps do we put?" I was like, "I don't know, just put them all around the same time." So
Holy
yeah,
shit. Dude, that's a
yeah,
lot. That's a lot of work.
yeah,
Dang, man.
yeah.